Welcome to 3-Check. 3-Check is a chess variant which you can play on the server lichess. In 3-Check, as the name suggests, you can win the game by giving 3 checks. Other than that, you can still win in the normal way by giving a checkmate or by resignation of your opponent, but the crucial difference is that you can give 3 checks. Why exactly 3? Well, if it was just 1, and to a certain degree also 2, the game would be over very quickly because white can just develop and sacrifice pieces and reach 1 or 2 checks. If it was much more than 3, then the problem would be that it's very close to normal chess and there's not really a big difference between 3-check and normal chess. Thus, the way it's implemented is by requiring exactly 3 checks to win the game. Today I'm going to give you some basic strategy, and I will show you a few games from the server lichess. I will first show you one of my games, and then I will discuss another game between 2 strong players on the server. The game which I played started with the move e4, and as a general guideline, 1 check in the opening, so to be 1 check up, is worth around a piece. This really depends a lot on the position, so this is just a very rough guideline. After e4, my opponent answered with c6, which is one of the 2 standard moves. Just to illustrate the game, I will show you what happens after the stupid move d5, which is very bad in this game because now white could give the first check. Black would have to go c6. Now I could take on c6, knight takes c6, and queen f3, threatening to give the third check by queen takes f7 check. Knight f6, and now maybe you can try to find the sequence how to give another check within the next 3 moves. Alright, I hope you found it, and the sequence starts with the move queen to c3, threatening queen to c6 check. Black has to defend with bishop d7, and now white just goes queen c5, and the next check with queen e7 or queen takes e7, depending on the pawn moves, wins the game for white. So black has to be extremely careful in 3-check in the opening, as you can already see, and therefore my opponent played one of the 2 standard moves, which is the move c6. The other standard move here is c5, which we are going to see in the second game. So c6 has the idea that the bishop has a hard time giving a check from b5, and if I just go bishop c4, black can go e6, and thereby avoiding a check from the bishop on f7. So after c6, I went knight c3, my opponent played d5, I took on d5, he went now knight f6. So again, important here not to go c takes d5, because this would allow me directly to give 2 checks. The first one on b5, and the next one would remove whatever piece avoids the check. So therefore, c takes d5 would be just a losing move, and thus after e takes d5, he went for the kind of theory move in this game, knight to f6. I renewed the threat with bishop c4. So if he makes a careless move, I can take on c6 and then on f7 and give the first check, and then go knight f3 and so on. So therefore, after bishop c4, he played a very strong move, also in line with the 3-check theory, which is the move e6. I have to say that I don't play the game that much, so I was not really familiar with the theory here, and I went for the following line. I took on e6, which, to avoid a check on f7, forces him to take back with a bishop. And now I think the theory is mainly to take on e6 and then f takes e6 and to play this position. Instead, I went for the move queen to e2, with the idea of taking on e6 and after f takes e6 to give queen e6 check. My opponent answered this with a move bishop c5. Yeah, bishop c5 is pretty strong. The idea is to give a check on f2, and probably now the best for me would have been to go something like knight h3, with the idea of meeting bishop takes f2 with knight takes f2. So in this case, now my king is relatively safe, and it's difficult to give 2 more checks. You know, and as I said in the beginning, so he could play queen takes d2 and give a second check, but then there was not really a third check, and therefore this would be a winning position for white. So, and that's why it's 3 checks, that you really need to do something more than just sacrificing pieces like that. So knight h3 would probably have been the best move, and then the game could have continued by giving this check maybe, and maybe castles, and yeah, with an unclear position. So instead, after bishop c5, I panicked a little bit, and I was afraid to receive the first check on f2, and played the move king to d1. Black now has a strong move, which he found, and this move is knight to g4. Knight to g4 threatens a check on f2. I have to defend against this by playing knight h3, and he gives this knight f2 check. So he's now 1 check up on me. After knight f2, I go knight takes f2, and he took back with the bishop. Probably this was also not very precise, and it would have been better to just immediately castle. And now one line which illustrates my problems would be the line after bishop takes e6, f takes e6, queen takes e6, check. So now it would be 1-1 in terms of checks, king h8. And in this position, his king is extremely safe, and I can only give 1 more check by sacrificing the queen, but none of my other pieces is close to even giving a check. So therefore, yeah, I would be in a lot of trouble here. And let's say if I played even some normal looking move like knight e4, this would already lose immediately because of rook f1 check followed by queen d2 check. So therefore, after castles, I think that black would have been better, and this sequence of taking on e6 would really not have been good. Probably I should go for something else like knight e4, knight g4 maybe. Instead, in the game, he took back on f2, and I took on e6. Yeah, and now he's basically forced to castle, because after a move like f takes e6, I can immediately win by giving 1, 2, 3 checks. So this forces him to castle. And now I should probably have gone for the move bishop to f5, retreating the bishop and also keeping control over the white squares here. Instead, I went for the worst move, which is the move rook to f1. And after rook to f1, the same logic as before applies, that f takes e6 would be a good move, because after queen e6, king h8, he again has such a position where it's quite easy for him to give a second check, but it's very, very hard for me to give more than a second check. So just I can sacrifice my queen, but I cannot give a third check. So therefore, f takes e6 would have been very strong, but he played a weaker move, namely the move king h8, and as he wanted to prevent me from giving even a first check. The problem with this move is that I now can just go rook takes f2, and after f takes e, I would still have the check on f8, and therefore he decided to sacrifice another piece with knight a6. But this is really too much. I mean, he's 1 check up, but he has no means of giving a third check, and I'm now just much quicker than he is. So I played the move d3, bringing the bishop into play. And yeah, here he should probably have gone queen e7 to protect the g7 square. We are going to see in a minute why this is important, but instead he played the move rook to e8. And after the move bishop h6, very strong, he resigned. Okay, what's the point about bishop h6? In case black takes, I can just go queen e5, give my first check. King g8 loses to queen g3 check, and followed by another check. by the queen. And something like f6 runs into rook takes f6, and rook f8 is threatening mate. And yeah, white is just winning. So after bishop h6, instead of resigning, he could actually have tried to play the move rook e6 check, with the idea that after bishop takes g7, he's not forced to take back on g7. If he takes back on g7, I just go queen g4 check and give another check with the queen. But instead he could go king g8. And now I would, yeah, there are different ways of winning, but one forced way, for instance, would be to go bishop e5 and to meet the move queen g5, again preventing queen g4 check by knight e4. Now black cannot take on e5 with the queen, because then again it's queen g4 check followed by another check, and I'm winning. And yeah, otherwise, so for instance, if he goes rook e5, I can just collect the material, and white is just a lot of material up, and black will never have the option of giving 2 more checks before white. And again, white would be winning. All right, yeah, so this was the first game which I wanted to show you. Let's now go to the second game. In the second game, we're going to take a look at a game played between the Chess24 users Zhigalko Sergey and Valera B5. And in this game, white again opened with the move e4. As I already said before, the black player has the option of playing c6 in this position, or e6, or the move c5. And the move c5 has the idea that if white goes bishop b5 very early, black can always go knight c6 and avoid a check on d7. So after c5, white went knight to f3 and knight c6. And now if white goes bishop c4, black can just go e6. So in this position, instead, white went for the move bishop b5, which would be the Rossolimo attack in normal chess. Yeah, but here you can now already see that this is not normal chess, as the black player immediately goes for the move knight to d4. Probably this move is not as good, and at least in practical terms, after bishop b5, I think the move e6 is much stronger, because it doesn't allow white to give a first check. In the game, the move knight d4 happened, and white took on d4, black takes back, and now white can at any time take on d7 and give a first check. This gives up a piece, but at least you have a check already. And this game is intended to illustrate the value of a piece versus the value of a check. So in this game, white played castles, black goes e6. Note that white doesn't really have to hurry with bishop d7 check, so this is not running away. White goes d3. And in the game, black went a6. Yeah, now white has to decide whether to retreat and go for a quiet position after bishop a4 and bishop e3. But I think what he did is absolutely correct. So he just took on d7, sacrificing a piece in return for the first check. So white has the first check right now. Yeah, now white came up with a pretty smart move, and this move is knight to d2. The idea is to go knight c4, and knight d6 will be a check in many variations. And then to give a third check with a queen is often quite easy. So if you're already one check up, you can go for these weird maneuvers where you just go for one check, and then the last check is somehow given by the queen. Black goes knight f6. White played knight c4, and already threatening the move knight to d6. And here I think black made another error, which is the move queen to c7. Black should instead go rook c8, really forcing white to declare the intentions. If white goes knight d6 here, then white just needs one more check, but the king is pretty safe, so I'm not sure that this is what white should do. And if white plays something else, so a normal developing move like bishop f4, then black can take on c4, and at least black had only received one check up to now. So I think this would have kept the game open. Instead of going rook to c8, black played the worst move, which was queen to c7, and white went queen f3. Yeah, what's the idea of queen f3? Well, the idea is to go e5, and we're going to see this in a minute. And black doesn't really have any defense against that. And yeah, bishop f4 is another idea here. So black went with the move b5, but the position is hopeless anyway, as white now just goes for e5. After a move like b takes c, white wins by queen takes a8, check, followed by another check. So probably the best move would have been to go queen c6, trying to exchange queens, but white would not oblige, give a check, and then just play queen h3, threatening to give a third check on e6. And after something like castles queenside, e takes d6, white is 2 checks up, and the queen will at some point give the third check, and therefore this position is winning for white. Instead, in the game, black played the move knight to d5. And remember that you only need to give 2 more checks. So if you want, you can pause the video and you can think about how to do that. Well, the black player realized himself that he allowed the following sequence and thus resigned without even waiting for the moves. But the moves are not really difficult to find. It's just 1 check followed by another check. So this would have ended the game within 2 moves. White gave the third check. All right, thanks a lot for watching this video about the variant 3 check. If you want, try out this variant on lichess. Also, I would be happy if you like the video or you subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot for watching. See you around.